وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'll be reviewing the topic, the reality of Eman. This topic has to be reviewed because it's one of the issues that has divided the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The Arabic word Eman is taken from the root word amana, which means to believe. So Eman means faith. Your faith. Eman, faith, is an abstract noun like love, mercy, etc. A noun which you cannot see nor touch. So there are two types of nouns: a concrete noun and an abstract noun. A concrete noun is a noun like this phone, you can see it and you can touch it. An abstract noun is a noun which you can see, neither can you touch it, like love, mercy, compassion, and Eman, which means faith. Eman is unshakable conviction in Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers, the day of judgment, and destiny. These are the 6 pillars of Eman, the 6 pillars of faith. So Eman is unshakable conviction in Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers, judgment day, and the divine destiny. These are the 6 pillars of faith. Allah Ta'ala said, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَرْتَابُوا. The sincere believers are only those who believe in Allah and His messenger, and then they do not have doubts. وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ. But instead they make jihad with their wealth and their persons. فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, in the path of Allah, أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الصَّادِقُونَ. These are the sincere ones. Surah 49 verse 15. Therefore, in regards to your faith, your Eman, Allah said, you, the believer, you have no doubts. So those who wake up one morning and they wonder, I wonder if it's of God, I wonder if Muhammad was really a prophet, I wonder if the Quran was revealed. These are not Muslims, they are kafirs, because they are wavering, they are not sure about the existence of Allah, they are not sure Muhammad was a prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They are not sure the Quran was revealed. They are not sure about paradise and hell. If you are wavering in regards to these issues, you are not sure, you are not a believer, you're a kafir, because Allah said, ثُمَّ لَمْ يَرْتَابُوا, that the believers, they have absolutely no doubts in regards to their Eman. It's very important for you to know the correct definition of Eman, faith, so that you know who is a Muslim and who is a kafir. Additionally, Allah said, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Surah 3, 102. Don't die unless you die in a state of Eman. Don't die unless you die as Muslims. So if the possibility did not exist for some of you to die outside the fold of Islam, why would Allah instruct you, don't die unless you die as a Muslim? Because the possibility exists that some of you die outside the fold of Islam. This is why Allah gave you the commandment, وَلَا تَمُوتُونَ. Do not die unless you die as Muslims. Also, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever he went to the janazah, he said, Allahumma ighfir li hayyina wa mayyitina. Oh Allah, forgive those who are alive and those who are dead. Wa shahidina wa ghaibina, those who are present, those who are absent. Wa saghirina wa kabirina, the children and the adult. Wa dhakrina wa unthana, the males and the females. Allahumma man ahyaytahu minna. Oh Allah, those who you cause to live, فَأَحْيِهِ عَلَى الْإِسْلَامِ, let him live on Islam. وَمَنْ تَوَفَّيْتَهُ مِنَّا. Oh Allah, those you cause to die from among us, فَتَوَفَّهُ عَلَى الْإِيمَانِ, let him die on Iman. Could I put a chair behind the door? Those you cause to die, let him die on Iman. So even the Rasul ﷺ used to beg Allah for us to die on Eman. Live on Islam and die with Eman. Now, how can you adhere to Eman if you don't know what is Eman? How can you die on Eman if you don't know what is Eman? You don't have a clue what is Eman. So how can you die on Eman? You can't die on a thing if you don't know the thing. And the Prophet made the dua and said, "Oh Allah, let them live on Islam. Oh Allah, let them die with faith, with Eman. Because Eman is a gift from Allah. He gives it to whom He pleases. And if Eman was a thing that money could buy, the rich would enter the paradise and the poor would enter the hellfire. So Eman is for free. It doesn't cost you anything to believe in Allah, His angels, His books, His prophets, messengers, to believe in Judgment Day and destiny. It doesn't cost you anything to believe in these 6 pillars of faith. So the Holy Prophet used to beg Allah at every janazah for us to die with Eman and to live on Islam. There were many people who took their shahada with the Holy Prophet ﷺ. They became Muslims at his hands, prayed with him and listened to his khutbahs in the Masjid of Medina, even did jihad with him, made hajj with him. But when the false prophet Musaylima came, they dumped Islam and joined the army of Musaylima, apostate from Islam, and killed Sahabas. And many of you who have Murji tendencies, you don't like to use the K word. What word is that? You think everybody is Muslim, and you think nobody is a hypocrite. Now, if the Prophet was alive and his generation was the best generation, do you follow? His generation was the best generation. Do you agree with that? Khairun nas qarni. The best generation is my generation. In spite of his generation being the best generation, hypocrites existed then. And the biggest hypocrite was called Abdullah ibn Ubay. Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. So if that generation, listen carefully, I'm using logic with you now. If that generation was the best generation, and in spite of all that, hypocrites existed then, what about our generation? The hypocrites are far more. The hypocrites are far more. And Allah said when they speak, they tell on themselves. Now look at what Taliban did recently. They broke the Buddha. They broke down the Buddha, the statues, the false deity Buddha. And scholars, I'm talking about Islamic scholars, who have more knowledge than you and I, they came forward and condemned Taliban for breaking the idols. So we say to them, but the Prophet broke the idols of the Kaaba. They said that's different. The reason why the Prophet broke the idols of the Kaaba is because the idols were inside the Kaaba. If they were outside the Kaaba, he wouldn't have broken it. Scholars speak like this. So we say, what about the people of Ta'if when the Prophet went to them and said, break the idols? And they said, no, give us a year, O Messenger of Allah, to break these idols. Not in Mecca, not in the Kaaba, away from Mecca. And the Prophet said, no. And they said, okay, give us a month. And the Prophet said, no, not even a month. And they said, okay, give us 3 days. And the Prophet said, not even 3 days to break these idols. He wouldn't compromise. And then the people said, okay, you can break them, but don't ask us to break them. Don't use our hands to break them. You break them. And the Prophet accepted, and he told his companions to break these idols. So a person may pretend to be a Muslim, a true Muslim, for 20 years. And one scenario, one episode, expose him as a hypocrite. For example, many people were pretending to be Muslims, but when Taliban broke the idols, they exposed the kufr and the hypocrisy which they were hiding inside their hearts. So you may pretend to be a Muslim for 20 years, and one incident takes place that exposes the hypocrisy and the apostasy which you were hiding inside your heart. Because Allah said, وَلَتَعْرِفَنَّهُمْ فِي لَحْنِ الْقَوْلِ. The hypocrites, when they speak, they tell on themselves. When they open their mouths, they tell on themselves. Back to our topic, the reality of Eman. So, people joined the army of Musaylimah, even though they met the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Apostate from Islam and killed Sahabas. Because for you to die on Eman, with Islam on Eman, this is a gift from Allah. Ask any Muslim doctor. When you leave this room tonight, ask any Muslim doctor who worked in Pakistan or any Muslim country, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Kuwait, and he sees Muslims dying every day. How many was able to say, La ilaha illallah? Maybe 1 out of every 1,000. 1 out of every 1,000, before the angel of death snatched his soul, he was able to say, La ilaha illallah. Why? Only 1 out of every 1,000? Because the majority are hypocrites. They can't say it. The last words of yours should be La ilaha illallah before the angel of death takes your soul. But I challenge you, ask any Muslim doctor, when you leave this room tonight, you see people dying every day. How many were able to say La ilaha illallah before the angel of death takes his soul? 1 out of every 1,000. Because the majority are hypocrites. And the Rasul said in a hadith found in Sahih Bukhari, only 1 out of every 1,000 will be in the paradise. This is how the hypocrisy is rife. The Holy Prophet, when explaining Islam to Jibreel, he said, Shahada, Salah, Zakah, Sawm, Hajj. But when Jibreel asked him about Eman, he explained it with things that are internal. To believe in Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers, Judgment Day, and destiny. Hence, Eman is action as well, but it is the action of the heart. Islam is action of the limbs. To say Shahada with your tongue, to pray, to fast, to make Hajj, to pay the Zakah. This is Islam. The 5 pillars, actions of the limbs. Eman is also actions, but these are actions of the heart, to believe in Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers, Judgment Day, and destiny. Since Jibreel said, what is Islam? What is Eman? This means there is a vast difference between Islam and Eman. It is a difference between a Muslim and a Mu'min. And there's a misconception that Islam means peace. Islam means peace. This is not the definition of Islam. The right definition of Islam is to submit to Allah with tawheed and obedience. To surrender to Allah with tawheed and complete obedience. And to renounce shirk and the people of shirk. This is the only legitimate definition for Islam. To surrender to Allah with tawheed and obedience. And to renounce shirk and the people of shirk. So your shahada has 2 parts. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha, you said there is no God. Meaning you reject faith in all the taghut, the false deities. Then you say illallah, except Allah. So if you are a Muslim and you believe in Allah, but you do not reject faith in the false deities, your Islam is thrown back in your face like a dirty rag. So you can't claim to love Allah and you believe in Allah, yet in your heart secretly you love Buddha, like those hypocrites who screamed out when Taliban smashed the Buddha. You can't be like this, because your shahada has 2 parts: negation and affirmation. La ilaha, that's the first part of your shahada. There is no God. The second part, illallah, except Allah. So for you to be a Muslim, you have to reject faith in all the false deities under the heavens, then believe in Allah. It is called negation and affirmation. You negate all the false deities, the taghut, and then you affirm that the only God you believe in is Allah. So if you love Allah, but in your heart you have love for Confucius, or Buddha, or Ram, or any other false deity, or any ism and schism, in your heart you love democracy, in your heart you love capitalism, any ism and schism, you have not yet rejected faith in all the taghut, the falsehood. Therefore your shahada is not accepted. As I said previously, there's a difference between the Muslim and the Mu'min. A Muslim takes his shahada and prays 5 times a day, fast in Ramadan, pays the zakah, fast in Ramadan, make hajj. But he may have a major weakness in his character. He may have a major weakness in his character. For example, alcohol. If a person takes his shahada, prays 5 times a day, fasts in Ramadan, pays zakah, make hajj, he's a Muslim. But he might have a weakness, which is a major weakness, for example, alcohol or zina. He's still a Muslim because he did not make his alcohol halal. He becomes a kafir when he makes alcohol halal. There are 2 types of major sins. Some major sins make you become a kafir immediately. Even if you did not intend to apostate, you have apostated. For example, to insult the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. To insult Allah. If you insult Allah, the Holy Quran, or the Prophet, you become a kafir even if you did not intend to become a kafir. So there are 2 types of major sins. The first type, the moment you do it, you are a kafir even if you did not intend to become a kafir. Another example, to work magic. If you work magic, you're a kafir even if you did not intend to become a kafir. Then the second type of major sin, if you do it, you are still a Muslim as long as you do not make it halal. Alcohol, zina, fornication, and to smoke cannabis, and so on and so forth. So there are 2 types of major sins, and this is where the Khawarij went astray. The Khawarij went astray in regards to the chapter of sins. They do not know the difference between the 2 major sins. They were jahil on the chapter of sins. They think every major sin make you a kafir. They don't realize some major sins make you a kafir, not every. So this is where the Khawarij went astray. They're jahil in regards to tawheed on the chapter of sins. So the Muslim may have a weakness which is a major, but the Mu'min doesn't have a weakness which is a major weakness which has become a trait in his character. Now how can you tell when this sin is a major sin? If there is a punishment ascribed unto it. Or if you read the Quran and Allah said, my wrath is on those who do so and so, this is a major sin. Because Allah's wrath is a type of punishment. So this is how you know when the sin is major. If there is a punishment ascribed unto it, for example, you cut the hand of the thief. And you can't cut the hand of every thief. If a person steals an egg, would you cut his hand? He has to steal something which is 100 pounds and over. So he sells his hands for 100 pounds. Is that clear? It is called the nisab. He has to steal 100 pounds and over. If a person is an accountant and he embezzles, can you cut his hand? You can't cut the hand of an embezzler. The Prophet said, don't cut the embezzlement. The person who practices embezzlement. It has to be a thief, a proper thief. So the mu'min is higher than the Muslim. And even the mu'min, there's a higher stage called the muhsin. So the mu'min abstains from major haram, as well as minor haram. But the muhsin, he's so careful, he abstains from even the makruh. The things that are makruh. Makruh means dislike. Makruh means it's not a sin, but it would have been better for you to leave it off. Haram means a sin. Makruh means it's not a sin, but it would have been better for you to leave it off. An example of makruh is to turn up at a wedding to eat food and you were not invited. The gate crash. It's makruh. Eh? Yes. The gate crashing. It is not Islamic etiquette. We will now explain Eman. There is big fitna among the Muslims in regards to the proper definition of Eman. Very, very big fitna. So much so that many of you marry your sisters and daughters to kafirs without realizing it, because you don't know who's a Muslim and who's a mu'min, who's a believer, who's a kafir. Why? Because you are not given the proper definition of Eman. The first definition, Eman, is conviction of the heart and declaration with the tongue. This is the definition of Abu Hanifa. What's wrong with the definition?
Information of the limbs.
You never mentioned the limbs. Was Abu Hanifa Murji? No. Huh? The hypocrites say he was a Murji. He never mentioned implementation of the limbs because he thought it was understood. The second definition, Eman, is only conviction of the heart, full stop. This is the definition of the Maturidiyya school of thought found in Turkey. They claim Allah became able to speak after he was unable to speak, Maturidiyya. Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, this is the founder of the school of thought. If you say Eman is only conviction of the heart, faith, if you are convinced that Allah exists, you are a Muslim. Eman is only conviction of the heart. Who did you include inside the fold of Islam? The Fir'aun. The Fir'aun of Egypt. Because Allah said in Surah Namal, verse 14, وَجَحَدُوا بِهَا وَاسْتَيْقَنَتْهَا أَنفُسُهُمْ ظُلْمًا وَعُلْوًا. The Fir'aun, he and his soldiers, in their hearts, they were convinced that Prophet Musa brought the truth, but they rebelled against it outwardly because of pride and haughtiness. So in the heart of the Fir'aun, he was convinced that Islam was the truth. So if you say Eman is only conviction of the heart, you have included the Fir'aun inside the fold of Islam. Look how dangerous it is when a person has dodgy aqidah and he cannot define Eman properly. He includes hypocrites and kafirs and zindiq, zanadiq, heretics inside the fold of Islam without realizing it. The third definition, Eman is declaration with the tongue, full stop. Iman is only declaration with the tongue. So if a person says with his tongue, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because he said it with his tongue, he's a Muslim. Even if he's not convinced in his heart, he's still a Muslim. Because Iman is only declaration with the tongue. Now, if we follow this dodgy, this wrong, erroneous definition of Iman, that Iman is only declaration with the tongue, who did we include inside the fold of Islam? The hypocrites. We include many hypocrites, hundreds and thousands and millions of hypocrites inside the fold of Islam. When I was in Trinidad, a small island in the Caribbean, a Hindu boy fell in love with a beautiful Muslim girl at university. And he asked the Muslim father for her, and the father turned him down because he was a kafir, a Hindu. Then he found out from the grapevine that for you to be a Muslim, just say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. A couple of words, and then you get the girl. So he took his shahada. He took his shahada. That's all I have to say to get this beautiful girl. That's all I have to say. So he took his shahada. And the marriage went ahead because he took his shahada. And after a month, he put on the walls of the house Ram, Hanuman, the monkey god, Sita with her 6 hands. And he started to drink. Then he physically abused the woman. And 10 of us stormed the house to beat him, but he smelled the rat, so he ran away. We had to take the girl away from him and take her back to her father. But this man, he took his shahada, didn't he? So, is it accepted? How can it be accepted? But if we go along with the definition of Iman given to us by the deviants, Eman is declaration with the tongue, full stop. As long as you declare with your tongue, you're a Muslim, perfect in Eman. And they don't include the other aspects of Eman. If we go along with this definition, which is wrong, given by the hypocrites, we would include hundreds and thousands and millions of hypocrites inside the fold of Islam, coming into Islam, collecting our zakah, which we work hard on earth, marrying Muslim women, which is haram for them to marry, cohabiting with Muslim women. When Muslims die, they inherit their property. They go to Mecca and Medina, which is haram for them to enter. When they die, they are prayed over and they are buried in the burial ground of Muslims. A'udhu billah. They enjoy all the rights of Islam because of this wrong definition of Eman which you give. Eman is only declaration with the tongue. Then the fourth definition, Eman is awareness. So if there's a kafir who becomes aware that Islam is the truth, he says in his heart, yes, the Muslims are speaking the truth. Islam is the truth. He's a Muslim. Just for you to become aware in your heart that Islam is the truth, you're a Muslim. So based upon this definition, the Fir'aun is a Muslim because he was aware in his heart that Musa brought the truth. So if the Pope of Rome sits in his office in Rome and he says to himself, in his heart, he says in his heart, Islam is the truth. And the next morning, he goes to church and preach Christianity. Is he Muslim or Kafir? Kafir. You agree with that? But in his heart, he's aware that Islam is the truth. So, Eman is not awareness, full stop. And Eman is not declaration with the tongue, full stop. Because if you say Eman is only, faith is only declaration with your tongue, you have included the shaitan inside the fold of Islam. Because in Surah 15 verse 36, Surah 15 verse 36, when the shaitan was thrown out of heaven, he said to Allah, Rabbi, فَأَنذِرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ, my Lord, grant me respite until judgment day when they will be all resurrected. So the shaitan said to Allah, my Lord, he declared with his tongue that Allah is his one and only Lord. He believes in Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, that Allah is the only Rabb, the only Lord. My Lord, grant me respite until judgment day when they will all be resurrected. So Eman could never be declaration with the tongue, full stop, because here the shaitan declares with his tongue that Allah is his one and only Lord. So what is the proper definition of Eman? There is only one legitimate definition of Eman, given to us by Ibn Abbas, the Prophet's cousin, and Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And even the Mu'tazilites believe in this definition of Eman. And the Ash'a'ira believe in this definition of Eman. Even the Shiites believe in this definition of Eman. What is the definition? Tasdeeq bil qalb, conviction of the heart. Iqrar bil lisan, to declare with your tongue. Wa amal bil arkan, and to implement it with your limbs. Conviction of the heart, declaration with your tongue, and implementation with the limbs. So Eman is heart, tongue, and limbs. Heart, tongue, and limbs. So if you believe in your heart, but you did not declare it with your tongue like Abu Talib, then you are still a kafir outside the fold of Islam. So heart, tongue, and limbs is called the three dimensions of Eman, the three levels of Eman. The Murji claims that our actions are not a part of our Eman. We say to him, what is your dalil? What is your dalil, your evidence that our actions are not a part of our Eman? And they quote one hadith, the favorite hadith of the Murji. What is this hadith? Osama ibn Zayd went to the battlefield at the age of 15 with zeal and enthusiasm. And he fought and overpowered a kafir. And just as he lifted his sword to chop off the head of the kafir, the kafir shouted out, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. And even though he said that, Usama still chopped off his head. The Prophet said, "Oh Usama, you killed the man even after he took his shahada?" Usama said to the Prophet, "As far as I am concerned, he recited the shahada to save his neck. That shahada was a fake shahada. He recited it to save his neck." The Prophet said, "Hal shaqaqta an qalbi hatta ta'lam hal yakuluhu am la?" Did you split his bosom open to see the reality of his heart, to know if he meant it or not? Usama said, the Prophet continued to ask me the question, did you split his bosom open to see his heart, to know if he really said it or not? The Prophet continued to ask me this question. I became so ashamed. I wish I wasn't born. The Murji said, look, the Prophet told Usama, you shouldn't have killed the man even after he took his shahada. You shouldn't have killed the man even after he took his shahada. So this hadith of Usama tells me that shahada is sufficient to take us to the paradise. You don't need to practice Islam. Just recite it. It's like the Christians. Just believe in Jesus and you'll be saved. So the Murji, they are the Christians of the Ummah. Just believe in Jesus and you'll be saved. Just recite your shahada and you'll be saved. So they quote this hadith of Usama to justify their liberalism, their irja. We say to them, we will refute you. Are we going to refute the hadith, or are we going to refute their understanding of the hadith? We refute their understanding of the hadith. So when we refute the Murji who quotes ayahs, we are not refuting the ayah, we are refuting their understanding of the ayah. Because they have a wrong explanation of the ayah. They have a wrong explanation of the hadith. So we have to refute their understanding of the hadith. We say to the Murji, anybody who takes his or her shahada, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt and embrace them as your Muslim brother, your Muslim sister. The only time you can deny them the rights of a Muslim and call them a kafir is if they behave a way which is contrary to the shahada. The only time you can make takfir on a person after taking his shahada and kill him is if he does something to nullify his shahada. So the man who took his shahada on the battlefield, Usama should have given him a chance to live. And then he will be monitored and inspected scrupulously. And if he lives in accordance to the 7 conditions of shahada, which is knowledge, certainty, to declare, to believe in it in your heart and to declare it outwardly, complete surrender to Quran and Sunnah, to condemn all shades of falsehood, to worship Allah alone, and to love and hate for Allah, al-wala wal-bara. Usama should have given the man a chance to live, to see if the man would live in accordance to the conditions of shahada. And if the man lived according to the conditions of shahada, then you continue to see him as a Muslim. But if he nullifies his shahada with a kufr act, which is a major kufr act, then you take away from him his shahada and kill him as an apostate. This is the explanation of the hadith, not your explanation. I don't need to pray, I don't need to fast, I don't need to make hajj, I just need to recite the shahada, and then Allah will accept me inside His paradise and give me the same paradise like you, the one who went and fought and died in the battlefield. Look at me, I'm so fortunate. I didn't pray a single rak'ah. You fasted 20 Ramadans, I didn't fast a single Ramadan. You saved your 2,000 pounds to make hajj and not eat. I didn't go through all that. All I did was to say, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and I will be in Firdaus just like you, and I didn't work like you. This is the mentality of the Murji. A freeness mentality. And the Murji who has this mentality maybe is on the dole. That's why it's a freeness mentality. He wants everything for free. He doesn't want to sacrifice. Everything he wants it for free. Even paradise, he wants it for free. Another aspect of your Eman. As I said previously, your actions are a part of your Eman, and the Murji, they reject. And this is the Aqidah of Hizb Tahrir. They believe our actions are not a part of our Iman. The Prophet said, Al-Badada min al-Iman. To dress in a humble manner is a part of Iman. The Prophet said, Akmal mu'mina imanan ahsanahum khuluqa. The most perfect of believers are those who are best in conduct. The most perfect of believers in regards to Iman are those who are best in their behavior, in character. And the best of you in the sight of Allah are those who behave best towards their wives. So if the Prophet said, the most perfect of you in regards to Iman are those who are best in character, this means your actions are a part of your Iman. The third evidence. Iman is consisted of 70 and odd branches. Al-Iman bid'un wa sab'una shu'ba afdaha qawl la ilaha illallah. Iman is consisted of 70 and odd branches. The highest is the la ilaha illallah. The lowest branch of Iman is to remove a harmful thing from the road, and to feel shy is a branch of Iman. So if you are walking down the road and you see a banana skin, and you say to yourself, if a pregnant woman should step on this and fall down, she would lose her pregnancy. So you pick up the banana skin and you dump it in the bin. The Prophet said, your action of picking up that banana skin and dumping it in the bin, that is a branch of Iman. To remove a harmful thing from the road is a branch of Iman. So how can Hizb Tahrir tell us that our actions are not a part of our Iman? Who are you going to believe? The Prophet or Hizb Tahrir? I can't hear you. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Another evidence to prove that our actions are a part of our Iman. Baqarah 143. The Sahabas used to pray to Jerusalem as the Qibla, the first Qibla. Then they were commanded by Allah to face Mecca. So they said to the Prophet, O Messenger of Allah, what about our prayers, our salah to Jerusalem? Will we get any thawab, any barakah, any blessings for that, any reward? When they asked the question, Allah revealed Baqarah 143. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِيعَ إِيمَانَكُمْ. It's not for Allah to make your Iman go to waste. Your salah to Jerusalem is Iman. And I, Allah, I will never let your Iman go to waste. So Hizb Tahrir, they need to be taught this ayah. Baqarah 143. Your salah, is it actions or not? It consists of qiyam, ruku, it consists of sajda, and it consists of taslim. Your salah is full of actions. The Prophet was told by Allah in Baqarah 143, it is not for me, Allah, to let your salah, which you pray to Jerusalem, go to waste. Your salah to Jerusalem is Iman. And I, Allah, I will never let it go to waste. So how can they tell us that our actions are not a part of our Iman when Allah said, salah is an action and it is your Iman and I will never let it go to waste. Baqarah 143. Because your actions are a part of your Iman, you can do something, an act which nullifies your Iman totally. Is that clear? You can do something that nullifies your Iman. You can do an act that destroys your relationship with Allah. If you are living in the UK, in London, and a person is passing through from another country, and he doesn't have money to rent a hotel which is £60 a night, and you put him up in your house. And when your back was turned, he tried to kiss your wife. Would the relationship between you and him remain the same? Is it possible? Possible or impossible?
Impossible.
I can hear you. You're not sure. Impossible. Impossible. Because he did something, he did an act that destroys the relationship between you and him. Do you follow? The same way a Muslim brother can do one act that destroys the relationship between you and him, you can do an act that destroys the relationship between yourself and Allah. Do you follow? So if you pray to somebody else instead of Allah, and Allah said, I am jealous. The Prophet said, I am jealous, and Allah is jealous, and no one is more jealous than Allah. If you pray to somebody else instead of Allah, you have destroyed the relationship between yourself and Allah. And all the scholars put in their Tawheed book, you're a kafir if you pray to somebody else instead of Allah. Even Bin Baz wrote it in his book. This is why the Brahmins who pray to the graves are kafirs. If you work magic and have contact with the shayateen, the jinns, you have destroyed the relationship between yourself and Allah. So many of you think, if a Muslim brother rips me off 10 grand, my life savings, I'm finished with him. The relationship is destroyed. But you don't think that the same way you can make bara from a person because he hurt your feelings, Allah can make bara from you because you did an act that destroys the relationship between yourself and Allah. And the reason for this is because your actions are a part of your Eman. So some actions you do takes you inside the fold, and other actions you do takes you outside the fold. And the reason why Abu Hanifa wasn't a Murji is because he said if you give away an egg to the fire worshipper the day he's having his festival, you have nullified your shahada. You donate an egg to the fire worshipper on the day he's having his festival, you have nullified your shahada. So how could Abu Hanifa, the father of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, be a Murji? He was far from being a Murji. He was never a liberal. Another aspect of your Eman. Your Eman, does it remain the same or does it go up and down?
Up and down.
Is there a Quran in it? Does it remain the same or does it go up and down? It fluctuates. The word fluctuate means to go up and down. Your Eman goes up and down. It fluctuates. It's okay. I understand. I know the ayah. It's okay. When the Sahabas were getting ready, there's a group in this country called Hizb Tahrir and Al-Muhajirun who claim our Eman remains the same. It doesn't go up and it doesn't go down. If you have this Aqidah that Eman we share with Eman, all of us, our Eman is the same. You are claiming that your Eman is on the same level as Abu Bakr and Umar. You are claiming that your Eman is the same as the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And for you to claim that your Eman is on the same level as Rasul, this is an act of kufr. Is that clear? This is an act of kufr. For you to claim that your Eman is on the same level as the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you are claiming that your Eman is on the same level as Jibreel alayhi salam. So, what you need to understand about Eman, it goes up and it goes down. So Allah Ta'ala said, I'm quoting to you from Surah 3, verse 173. At the battle of Uhud, before the battle, the hypocrites of Medina said, a huge army is getting ready to fight you. So fear them. الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسِ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُمْ فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. The hypocrites of Medina said to the Sahabas, the companions of the Prophet, a huge army is getting ready to fight you. So fear them. Allah said, when the hypocrites said to the believers, fear them, I, Allah, I caused the Sahabas to grow in Eman. فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا. And they said, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. Allah is best to put our trust in. And He is the best to depend upon, to take care of our affairs. Ni'mal wakil. Tawakkul, to put your trust. He is the best to take care of our affairs. And He is the best to put our trust in. So Allah said, I cause those companions in Medina to grow in Eman when the hypocrites said to them, fear the people who are coming to fight you. So if Allah is telling you in Surah 3, 173, that He caused the Sahabas to grow in Eman, how can you believe His Tahrir? That our Eman is static. It doesn't go up, nor does it go down. Now who are you going to believe? The Holy Quran or His Tahrir? Yeah? The Holy Quran. You can't believe His Tahrir, you have to believe the Holy Quran. Another evidence, a Sahaba went home and said, I'm a hypocrite. And the Prophet said, what makes you say that? His name was Andala. He said, oh Messenger of Allah, when I was in your company and you speak about Islam, my Iman was sky high, at an all-time high. But when I went home and I played with my wife and children, my Iman went down. So I'm a hypocrite. And the Prophet said, if your Iman should remain high at all times, you have the Iman of who? The angels. Only the angels, their Iman doesn't go up and down. Another evidence to refute Hizb Tahrir. لا يزني الزاني حين يزني وهو مؤمن. The fornicating man is not a believer when he's in the act with the woman. If a man is in the act with the woman, fornicating, is he mu'min? No, but he's still a Muslim. Is that clear? The Khawarij said when he's in the act with the woman, he's a kafir. But we, the members of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we say when he's in the act with the woman, he's not a mu'min, but he's still a Muslim. This is the right aqidah. He's not a believer, a mu'min, but he's still a Muslim. Listen to the hadith. Don't you understand the Arabic language? Listen to the hadith. لا يزني الزاني حين يزني وهو مؤمن. The fornicated man is not a believer, a mu'min in the act. The Prophet didn't say he's not a Muslim when he's in the act. The Prophet didn't say that. He's not a Muslim when he's in the act. The Prophet said he's not a mu'min, but at the end of the day, he's still a Muslim. So the hadith says his iman hangs over his head like a dove, and when he's finished, it goes back in. So from the mere fact that when he was in the act of fornicating, he was not a mu'min, this tells you that your iman goes up and down. It goes up when you do righteous deeds, and it goes down when you do haram deeds. Another thing you need to know about Eman. You choose your wife according to your Eman. Did you know that? Many men prefer to marry women who don't wear a hijab because he himself is hanging on to Islam by a thread. He himself is hanging on to Islam by a thread, so he prefers to marry a woman who doesn't wear a hijab. Many women prefer to marry men who listen to music and clean shaven and smoke. I don't want a person who's too strict, because I myself, I'm not religious. I'm a Muslim, but I'm not religious. Now these women, listen to these women. When they want to get married, they want to marry a man who is hanging on to Islam by a thread, because these women are themselves hanging on to Islam by a thread. And they want a husband who will make them feel comfortable in their hypocrisy. So they marry a weak person. And when this person who is weak starts to drink and starts to commit adultery with her friends and goes to nightclubs, they're ringing up sheikhs, harassing the sheikhs. Please come and talk to my husband. Why didn't you marry a good Muslim in the first place? Why marry a hypocrite, and when he gives you a hassle, you ring up the sheikhs and then hassle the sheikh? So he hassles you and you hassle the sheikh. So these women, they want to have their cake and eat it at the same time. They don't want a strong Muslim, because she wants to listen to music and watch Home and Away, EastEnders, Neighbors, Coronation Street, Brookside, and all the other filth on TV. And she wants to leave the home dressing in miniskirts and so on and so forth. But at the same time, she wants to impose Islam on her husband so that her emotions will not be hurt. Don't go to nightclubs. Don't cheat on me. Don't. So she wants a man who is 50% shaitan, 50% angel. But the angelic part of him that she wants is the part where her emotions are not hurt. So she doesn't care if the man doesn't give his right to Allah. He doesn't pray no salah. She doesn't care about that. But she wants the man to give her her rights. Is that clear? Do you see the hypocrisy? She doesn't care that he doesn't pray. And he doesn't pay zakah even though he's rich. He doesn't pay his rights to the poor Muslims. She doesn't care about that. She only puts her foot down when he is trodden on her rights. This is the hypocrisy that many Muslim women are suffering from. When they ask you for a husband, they make sure they specify, I don't want a person who's too strict. So you choose your husband according to your Eman. You choose your wife according to your Eman. Show me your wife and I'll tell you who you are. And you choose your company according to your Eman. So those of you who are at school, college, university, and you find yourself hanging out with Hindus and Sikhs and Buddhists and atheists and agnostic and homosexuals, Christians and Jews, you feel comfortable in their company. But you don't feel comfortable in the company of strong practicing Muslims. It means that you are hanging on to Islam by a thread, or maybe you are already an apostate. Why is it that you feel comfortable in the company of Jews who are killing Muslims in occupied Palestine? Christians who are killing Muslims in Serbia, Bosnia, Macedonia, Chechnya. Hindus who are killing Muslims in Kashmir. You feel comfortable in their company. But you don't feel comfortable in the company of the strong practicing Muslims. Why? Because maybe you are hanging on to Islam by a thread, or maybe you have already apostated from the fold of Islam. You choose your friends according to the level of your Eman. Show me your friends, and I'll tell you what type of Muslim you are. By the way, if our Eman was the same, why do we have 7 paradise and 7 hell? Some kafirs are worse than others. And the worst of kafir is the hypocrite. And because of that, Allah said, إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي دَرْكِ الْأَسْفَلِ مِنَ النَّارِ. Verily, the hypocrites shall be in the bottom of the hellfire. A man came to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "O Messenger of Allah, what is compulsory on me in regards to this deen?" And the Prophet said, "Take your shahada. Pray 5 times a day. Pay zakat. Fast in Ramadan, make hajj." It's a desert Arab. He got up and said, "Wallahi, I will never add to these 5 things and I will never subtract." The Prophet said, if he is truthful to his claim, he will be in paradise. This man is going to pay zakah but no sadaqah. Now when you come here and you put a pound towards this halqa to rent the building, this is called sadaqah, not zakah. This is sadaqah. So you pay zakah plus you give sadaqah. This man, he's going to pay zakah, no sadaqah. He's going to fast in Ramadan and he's not going to fast the 6 days of Shawwal. He's going to make hajj, no umrah. And he got up and left and said, "I won't add to these 5 pillars of Islam and I will never subtract." And the Prophet said, "Wallahi, if he's truthful, he'll be in paradise." Can you compare this man to the other man who prayed tahajjud? He's not going to pray tahajjud. Only the 5 salah, no tahajjud, no witr. Can you compare him to the man who prays thousands of tahajjud? Can you compare him to the man who prays, who fasts in Ramadan plus the 6 days of Shawwal? Can you compare him to the man who makes hajj plus 10 umrah? You can't. He will be in the lowest paradise and the other man will be in a higher paradise. So your common sense should tell you that there are different levels of Eman because we have 7 paradises. And your common sense should tell you some kafirs are eviler than the others because we have 7 hells. And the hypocrites will be in the bottom of the hellfire. And some kafirs you can marry. The Muslim man can marry a Christian girl. Can you marry a Sikh girl? No. A Hindu girl? A Buddhist girl? No. A Buddhist girl, you can't marry her. One day a man came to this halqa and he told me he fell in love with a Japanese girl at university. And she's a Buddhist. He wants me to give him a fatwa to marry her. I said, "You can't marry her, she's a Buddhist." And he wants to argue with me. Why is it that we can marry Christian girls, but I can't marry my Japanese girl who's a Buddhist? He wants to argue with me right here in this halqa. So people who declare war on sheikhs, you know why they declare war on sheikhs? Because they hate what you are preaching. The people of Hawa, people who worship their evil and corrupted desires. They want you to make every haram halal. Every haram halal, they want you to make it. And if you don't budge, they declare war on you and assassinate your character. They don't really want to assassinate your character, they want to kill you the way the Jews killed the prophets. The only reason why they don't kill you is because they're wimps. That's why they don't kill you, they're wimps. So the people of Hawa, they are dangerous to have in your midst. And the Prophet said, "Don't sit with the people of Hawa." Now Ahmad bin Hanbal said, "Ahmad bin Hanbal, don't sit with the people of Hawa. Because when you do this, either you follow them in their evil ways or you become confused. You don't know if they are right or you are right." Not only do the believers grow in Eman, but also the kafirs grow in kufr. So the other evidence to prove that the believers grow in Eman, Tawbah 124. وَإِذَا مَا أُنزِلَتْ سُورَةٌ فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَقُولُ أَيُّكُمْ زَادَتْهُمْ هَذِهِ إِيمَانًا. Every time Allah sent down a surah, the hypocrites of Medina said it sarcastically. Listen to the ayah. Every time Allah revealed a surah, the hypocrites of Medina, they said sarcastically, Which one of you had his Iman grow with this surah? فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, but as for the true believers, فَزَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا, these surahs cause them to grow in Iman. وَهُمْ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ, and they rejoice at these surahs. And as for the kafirs, they grow in kufr. So Allah said in Baqarah 10, Surah 2, verse 10, فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ مَرَضًا, in their hearts is a disease, and Allah has increased their disease. So every time you learn a new surah, a new ayah, you love Islam more, isn't it so? And every time you learn a new hadith, you grow in Iman, isn't it so? And every time you learn a new story about a Sahaba, you grow in Iman, isn't it so? Similarly, every time a kafir hears a new hadith and he rejects faith in it, he grows in kufr. The exact opposite happens to the kafirs. So Allah said, فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ, in their heart is a disease, and Allah Ta'ala has increased their disease. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ فَزَادَتْهُمْ رِجْسًا وَمَاتُوا وَهُمْ كَافِرُونَ, as for those in whose heart is a disease, Allah has increased their disease, disease on top of disease, and they die as kafirun. Surah Tawbah, verse 125. Concerning the expressions Muslim, Mu'min, when you put them together, they separate. But when you separate them, they come together. Shall I repeat myself? Muslim, Mu'min. Which one is higher? Mu'min. When you put them together, they separate. But if you separate them, they come together. If you say the Muslims and the believers are sitting down in a masjid, it means that one is on a higher level than the other. You put them together so they separate. But if you use the word Mu'min by itself, it also means Muslim. If you use them single, you single out the word Mu'min and use it by itself, it also means a Muslim. Some desert Arabs, Allah separated them in Surah, Allah put them together in Surah 33 verse 35. Surah 33 verse 35. Innal Muslimin wal Muslimat wal Mu'minin wal Mu'minat. Some desert Arabs took Shahada, and then famine came and hit them, and they were suffering dire straits. They were suffering dire straits, hunger. So they came to Medina and said, "Oh Muhammad, feed us, we are believers. Muhammad, feed us, we are believers. Mu'minun, we are mu'minun." So Allah revealed Surah 49 verse 14. قالت الأعراب آمنا. The desert Arabs claim to be believers. قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا. Say unto them, you are not yet believers, you are only Muslims. وَلَمَّا يَدْخُلْ الْإِيمَانِ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. Iman has not yet entered your heart properly. Iman has not yet entered your hearts properly. So Allah corrected the desert Arabs in Surah 49 verse 14. Surah Hujurat 14. Allah made a difference between Mu'min and Muslim. If a person says to you, "Are you a Muslim?" can you say, "Inshallah"? According to, there's difference of opinion. According to some scholars, Abu Hanifa said, if a person asks you, "Are you a Muslim?" you're not allowed to say "Inshallah" because you have doubts. And you're not allowed to have doubts in regards to faith. This is the school of thought of Abu Hanifa. It's haram to say "Inshallah." If a person asks you, "Are you a Muslim?" you have to say "Yes." And the second opinion, if a person asks you, "Are you a Muslim?" you have to say "Inshallah." They make it fard for you to say inshallah because you don't know if you're going to die a Muslim or a Kafir. So if you say, are you a Muslim? Because you don't know how you're going to die, you have to say inshallah. None of these two opinions are correct. Is that clear? Let's refute the first opinion. Allah said, لَقَدْ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ رَسُولَهُ الرُّؤْيَا. Indeed, listen to this evidence, we are going to refute them. Those who say, if a person asks you, are you a Muslim? It is haram to say, inshallah. The Prophet saw in a dream, he and his companions entering into Mecca. Some shaving their heads, muhalliqeen, and some muqassirin, clipping their hair, without fear, making umrah. So the Prophet told the Sahabas the dream and they were happy. So Allah said in Surah 48, verse 27, لَقَدْ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ رَسُولَ الرُّؤْيَا. Indeed, Allah shall make the dream of His messenger come to pass. لَتَدْخُلُنَّ الْمَسْجِدَ الْحَرَامِ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ آمِنِينَ. You will enter Masjid al-Haram at Mecca, inshallah. Allah said, inshallah. Aminin, in peace and safety. Muhalliqin ru'usakum, some of you shaving your heads. Wa muqassirin, while others will be clipping their hair. La takhafun, with no fear. Now, the Prophet and his companions, did they enter Mecca for Umrah? They did, right? And Allah said, you will enter. And Allah said, inshallah, you'll enter. Now, those who say, you cannot say, inshallah, you have to say, yes, they refuted the ayah. This ayah which I've quoted unto you, they refuted the ayah. How did they refute the ayah? They said, Allah said, inshallah, you'll enter Mecca, shaving your heads. Some of you clipping your hair with no fear. Allah said, inshallah, because Allah knew that some Sahabas would die before the day come for them to enter. This is how they refute the ayah. Allah knew that some people will die before the day came for them to enter Mecca. So because of that, Allah said, inshallah. Have you heard about Zamakhshari? Zamakhshari. Who was he? Mu'tazila. He gives tafsir. Zamakhshari in his tafsir said, this ayah, inshallah, Allah never said. Jibril put it in the Quran behind the back of Allah. Is that clear? Jibril put it in. Jibril decided to put in the three words, inshallah, by Allah's will, behind the back of Allah. Allah never said inshallah. Jibril put it in without Allah's permission. So the reason why he gave this tafsir is because he wants to support his aqidah, that you are not allowed to say inshallah when a person asks you, are you a Muslim? And because of that, some classical scholars made takfir on Zamakhshari. Now Zamakhshari's tafsir is one of the best tafsirs. From what angle? The grammar. Very good. Not for aqidah, grammar. If you want to know what's the verb, what's the noun, what's the pronoun, what's the conjunction, what's the interjection, what's the adverbial clause, the adjectival clause, these are grammar, right? If you want to know these things, you need to read his tafsir. So even though he had dodgy aqidah, his tafsir was one of the best tafsirs from the angle of grammar. Now, Imam Qurtubi, he was a sha'ir. But his tafsir is one of the best from what angle? Fiqh. Fiqh. So you have scholars out there who are deviants, but you need their works. You know why? Because they were not full-fledged deviants. They are called limited deviants. When I was studying in Saudi Arabia, there was a sheikh, a big mufti of Spain, Ibn Hazm. What did he say? What is halal? Music. Music is halal. So a Saudi boy put up his hand and said to the sheikh, can we read his book Al-Muhalla? Because he said music is halal. The sheikh was surprised at the question. When the sheikh said, is there a person who can do without the book Al-Muhalla? Is there a sheikh who can do without the book Al-Muhalla? So even though he said music is halal, when you pick up his book to read it, you can put it down. The way he was knowledgeable and the way he brings his evidence is evidence of very, very strong evidences. You need his fiqh book. Even though he had a problem with music, he used to listen to music, and he never gave up music. That was his weakness. You need to read his book because he was loaded with knowledge. He went astray in one regard, just music. Just 1% music. The other 99% he was spot on. So there is no sheikh who's 100%. Is that clear? Allah makes you make mistakes so that people don't worship you. So you can't, if a sheikh makes one mistake, you can't flush him down the drain. Whose attitude is this? The Khawarij. A person makes one mistake and you flush all of his books down the drain because of one mistake. You can't do that. That's a Khawarij mentality. So all the scholars make mistakes. So not because Ibn Hazm said music is halal, you can't do without his works. Because he was loaded with knowledge. And where was he born? Where did he born? Right here in Europe, in Spain. One of the greatest scholars of Islam. Born right here in Granada, in Spain. That's why he was called Qurtubi as well. Because he was from Granada, Cordova in Spain. Now, since they refute our ayah, or they refute our understanding of the ayah, they said, Allah said, inshallah, because some sahabas would die before the day to enter Mecca came. You have to bring another evidence which they can't refute. And this is called our punch, the knockout punch, Ahlus Sunnah Jama'ah. Will you die or you're not sure you will die? What's your opinion? You'll die. All of us will die. Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut. Every soul will have a taste of death. In spite of that, when the Prophet entered the graveyard, he said, Assalamu alaikum ahlu diyar min al-mu'minin wal-muslimin. Assalamu alaikum, people of the graveyards from among the Muslims and the believers. Wa insha'Allah nahnu bikum lahiqun. And insha'Allah, one day we will be dead like you and we will meet you. So even though the Prophet knew that for us to die is a certainty, still he said, Insha'Allah. So you are allowed, if a person asks you, are you a Muslim, you are allowed to say, Insha'Allah, if you said it without any doubts. If when you said it, you had no doubts, then you are allowed to say it. And the reason why Allah said, Insha'Allah, is to teach us adab. To teach us adab. So Allah said, وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ. Don't say about a thing, I'm going to do it, unless you say, Insha'Allah, inni fa'ilun dhalika ghadan illa an yasha'Allah. Don't say you're going to do this tomorrow until you say, Insha'Allah. You don't want to be like Prophet Sulaiman, who had 100 wives. He said, I'm going to cohabit with all of them, and they'll give me a boy to do jihad, fi sabilillah. And he didn't say Insha'Allah, and they were all born deformed. Because he didn't say Insha'Allah. The last chapter, signs telling us a person has Eman. The first sign, the person has a good character. Because the most perfect of those in regards to Eman are those who are best in character. Number 2, he practices al-wala wal-bara, to love and hate for the sake of Allah. He loves what Allah loves and he hates what Allah hates. The third sign, he loves the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahabas, and he avoids insulting the companions, the Sahabas. The fourth sign, he loves for the Muslims what he loves for himself. These are signs to tell you when a person has Eman. Number 5, his inclinations are in accordance to Quran and Sunnah. His desires are in accordance to Quran and Sunnah. Number 6, he doesn't harm the Muslims with his hands or his tongue. He controls his tongue and his private parts. This is sign number 7. He controls his tongue and his private parts. Number 8, he doesn't call upon false deities. Number 9, he loves jihad. He goes for jihad training, he loves jihad, he preaches jihad. And he doesn't undermine jihad. These are the 9 signs telling you that a person has Eman. I will now pause and take questions in regards to our topic, the reality of Eman.
Sure. Is there such a thing as copyright?
Copyright? Copyright is if the person
Gives you rights to make copies of the product.
If you copy something because the Muslims need it to enhance their faith, then you did not do anything wrong. Because my tapes are copied by the thousands in America. Can I say to them, haram, don't copy? It's ridiculous. So if you put on the tape, fear Allah, don't copy, the person who prints fear Allah, he should fear Allah.
There's no such verdict.
No, there's no such verdict. Not for spreading Islamic knowledge. There's no copyright for spreading Islamic knowledge. You know, my book, 100 Fabricated Hadith, it was copied in India. Thousands of copies were printed and sold to bash the Bareilles. What can I do? I have to depend on Yom Al-Qiyamah to get the barakah for that.
Allah will take out those of people going to Jahannam who did no good action whatsoever. What about hadith?
People will be doing what?
They enter Jahannam, Allah will take them out from heaven through the Prophet Prophet's intercession, and they did no good action whatsoever.
That's because the explanation. Some people will be taken out of Jahannam because they didn't do any action whatsoever. That's because they lived at a time in the last days when the Islamic scholars died and knowledge was lifted up and all they knew was La ilaha illallah. If a person doesn't pray, is he Muslim or Kafir? Kafir. Did you know that a time is coming when people don't pray and they're still Muslims? Because the knowledge will be lifted up. The scholars will die out and there's no knowledge. And all they know about Islam is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and still they're Muslims. Then another generation will come and all they know is La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, and they'll be in paradise just for saying La ilaha illallah. So Allah won't judge you based upon what you didn't know. Allah will judge you based upon what you know. So when the Russians entered into Muslim territories in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and killed the scholars and bulldozer the masjid down, and people don't know how to pray, they forget how to pray, they're still Muslims. So even the Kosovars, the Bosnians and the Kosovars, they're Muslims. Even though they don't know how to pray, they're still Muslims. Because they are victims of circumstances. You cannot make takfir in the Kosovars and the Bosnians. They're Muslims, even though they don't know how to pray. They are victims of circumstances. They were under communism for many decades. And their scholars were killed and the masjids were bulldozed down. But a person who's living in a country where there are thousands of scholars and masjids and knowledge is available and they refuse to pray, that's a kafir. He's not a victim of circumstances. He chooses to be a kafir.
He said that he would call he's a Murji, has a job, and he's a hypocrite. But at the same time, Shaykh Islam said something in Shaka, I can give you some other time, that Abu Hanif was following the method of the Murji Fuqaha, who were part of the 40 groups of the Murji, and he said that this is due to he was taught from the Hamid Salim and taught the founder of this group. So he said that.
In the Shar Aqidah Tahawiyah, they call Abu Hanifa Murji'atul Fuqaha. They are correct. But when they call him Murji'atul Fuqaha, they did not call him Murji to insult him. There are other people, I don't want to call their names, they are in this country, who call Abu Hanifa Murji with the intention to insult him. These are the hypocrites, not the ones who call him Murji'atul Fuqaha, the Murjis of the Fuqaha, Abu Hanifa and his students, because they include actions as a part of our Iman. The hypocrites who call Abu Hanifa a Murji are those people who call him a Murji with the intention to insult him. And the hadith says 3 people. If you hate them, you are not a Muslim, you are a hypocrite. An old Muslim, a just ruler, or a scholar of Islam. So the 4 rightly guided caliphs and the 4 great imams, when you open your mouth to speak about them, you cannot say nothing unless good things. None of these 4 great imams belong to the Mu'tazilite school, the Khawarij, the Jabriya, the Asha'ira, the Murji'a, the Qadariya. We call them Qadariya because they deny Qadar. We call them Jabriya because they blame Allah for their sins. Don't blame me for drinking alcohol, blame Allah. He wrote it down that I was going to do it. We call them Mu'tazila because they are rationalists, they rationalize the deen. And the Asha'ira, a splinter group from the Mu'tazila. None of the four great Imams belong to any one of these stray sects. This is why, if you follow one of these four great Imams, your deen will be protected. Once you go outside one of these four great Imams, then you become a deviant. You need to stick to one of the school of thought of the four great Imams, because the Ummah have become united upon these four great Imams. And all the people who try to bring a fifth school of thought, they always go astray.
You said the values are, is this unrestricted kufr, is this unrestricted takfir, or is it that, and do you see that if you give someone who commits major kufr an excuse?
There is no such thing as excuse for major shirk. If a person prays to the graves, if a person prays to idols, he's a Muslim or kafir? Can you say this man who is worshipping the idols, he's not a kafir because he doesn't know better? There's no excuse for major shirk. However, where the brothers are concerned, I prefer you establish the hujjah first, then you make takfir. Is it clear? Just not to leave yourself open. You establish the hujjah, then you make takfir. Now the hujjah has already been established in the Brahmins. Every Brahmin knows, every Brahmin was told. I've spoken to many Pakistanis who live there and who have come from there just recently. All the Brahmins were told that they should stop worshipping the graves. The hujjah has been established on every Brahmin. And they have a backlash and say, Wahhabi. You don't worship the graves with us, you're a Wahhabi. So there is no Brahmin who wasn't told that they are doing wrong to worship the graves. So the hujjah has already been established. So they are kafirs.
A lot of their scholars, they wrote a lot of books refuting
the Brahmins. They are all told they're doing wrong, but they don't want to give up Hinduism. They don't want to give up Hinduism. So the hujjah has already been established on them that they should stop worshipping the graves, but they are stubborn in their shirk ways. So there is absolutely no excuse for major shirk. And this is the aqidah of the Murji'ah. If there was excuse for major shirk, what do you do with the ayah? وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمٍ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَأَشْهَدُهُمْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَىٰ شَهِدْنَا. Allah said, remember, we took you from the loins of Adam and asked you, am I not your Lord? Surah Araf 172. And you said yes. Allah said, I did this so that on Judgment Day you will not have any excuses. So Allah is telling you in Surah Araf, I took away from you your excuses. I took you from the loins of Adam and I asked you, am I not your Lord? And you said yes. Allah said, I did it so that on Judgment Day you cannot say, I wasn't told. Allah said, I took away from you your excuses. Now who is more jahil in regards to Allah? A Christian or a Brahmin? A Christian. If a Christian worshipped Jesus, would you make excuse for him? So if you wouldn't make excuse for a Christian, why do you make excuse for the Brahmin? Why the double standard? So once you worship somebody else beside Allah, you're a kafir, because there is no excuse for major shirk. Allah, another evidence, Surah 30 verse 30, فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةُ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا. Turn your faces, all of you, to the right religion. This is Allah's fitrah, the natural way which Allah has created you. لَا تَبْدِيلِ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ. Never will you find any change in the creation of Allah. Now there's a hadith that says Allah took the Prophet's father and mother out of the grave, and the Prophet gave them shahada, and then Allah put them back in the grave. I need to research the hadith because Qurtubi quoted it in his book of Tazkirah. And this was a miracle of the Prophet. His parents, Allah took them out of the grave, put life into them, and the Prophet gave them shahada, then Allah put them back in the grave. The Qurtubi quoted it. So the hadith has some legitimacy, but I don't know if it is sahih or weak. I wouldn't say fabricated because Qurtubi, I can't see him quoting a fabricated hadith. I'll need to do the research on the hadith. So if there was excuse for major shirk, why did Allah find it necessary to take them out of their graves and give them shahada? Tafadal.
In this day and age, to cure millions of people.
We don't follow democracy. If millions apostate, you have to make takfir in them. You cannot say because the majority have become kafirs and we have to give them a squeeze. There's no democracy in Islam. The majority of people in Pakistan and Bangladesh, they do black magic, and we can say because they are in the majority, we're not going to say magic makes you a kafir. Is that clear? And the hadith says, out of every 1,000, only one will be in paradise. Out of every 1,000, only one will be in paradise. So the majority, Allah said, Akthar nas fasikun, the majority will always be evil. So not because the majority are in apostasy from the deen, you're going to say, well, we have to water down Islam to facilitate the majority. We don't follow the rules of democracy. People have to be told that to worship others beside Allah makes them become kafirs, because we say, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. People say to me, but the brothers, they don't know what Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in means because they speak Urdu or Turkish, so they don't know Arabic, so they don't know what they're saying. Iyaka na'budu. You alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help. And where takfir is concerned, I have no mercy. I make takfir and even my mother. I even make takfir when I'm sleeping.
Sheikh, in Pakistan, there are firqas, they call people, if someone stops them from worshipping graves and worshipping peers or sheikhs, they call them Wahhabis.
Yes.
And in Pakistan, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they have different Aqidah, because some people belong to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. They believe that it's alright to follow sheikhs or do 11th or 3rd when people die. They celebrate the 3rd day or 11th day, or do 40 days. After 40 days, they deliver food in people and do khatam. So these are the people belong to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah in Pakistan. And people, there are some people, they call them some Ahl Hadith, which is the most similar Aqidah so far, which is right. And the only thing which is bad about them is they support Salafis, Saudi Salafis, and they support them. So what is Wahhabi in perspective, and what is Ahl Hadith, and what is Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah in Pakistan, according to Pakistan?
The Ahlul Hadith people, they are Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah.
They are.
If they believe in Tawhid Hakimiyya, that Allah is the lawgiver, and they campaign for jihad and sharia, they are Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Anybody who doesn't have jihad and sharia on their agenda, they are not of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The people who do khatam, they are not of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, because khatam is bid'ah. Khatam doesn't make you a kafir. But the reason why they put the food there is they said the dead people come and eat it. You understand? So they are still into Hinduism. They are still into Hinduism. So the people of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah in Pakistan are the Ahlul Hadith. That is those who believe in Tawhid Hakimiyya and they believe in jihad and sharia. A Wahhabi is anybody who said the Prophet was Bashar, a human being, not Nur, and he doesn't celebrate the Prophet's birthday, and he doesn't pray to the graves. This is the Wahhabi. He doesn't pray to the graves, and he said the Prophet was Bashar, a human being, not Nur, and he doesn't celebrate the birthday of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That is the Wahhabi.
So, in other words, there is no difference between Ahl Hadith, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and Wahhabis?
No, there is no difference. Next question.
What happens to those people who didn't hear of Islam? They don't hear about it, but they died, and when they do judgment, what happens?
If a person who didn't hear about Islam, Allah will judge him based upon what he hears. So if he heard about Jesus and he died believing Jesus was only a prophet, Allah is one, and Jesus was only a prophet, they'll be in paradise. Or if they were living in the time of Moses, switch your mobiles off. And he believed Moses was a prophet, and Allah is one, he'll be in paradise. Allah will judge you based upon what you hear, not upon what you didn't hear. Next.
What's the position with Alban? Is he Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah?
Albani was a Murji. Albani, he was a Murji. He believes to dismantle the Sharia was kufr dun and kufr minor kufr. So if we follow his aqidah, when Allah turned the Jews into apes and swine, Allah was overreacting for turning the Jews into apes and swine for dismantling the Sharia. So Albani was a Murji, and he was very weak in regards to Tawheed and aqidah. He was miskeen in regards to Tawheed and Aqidah.
Is he a scholar of Hadith?
Yes, but not Aqidah. You had people who were scholars of fiqh, but they were still kafirs, like Ibn Rushd. Ibn Rushd was a great scholar of fiqh. He can tell you how to marry, how to divorce, how to make hajj, but he was a kafir. So you can be a scholar of fiqh, but where Aqidah is concerned, you're a kafir. This is why Imam Ghazali called him a kafir. Ibn Rushd. He wrote a book called Bidayat al-Mujtahid wa Nihayat al-Muqtasid. A great book, I have it at home. Very good book on fiqh, but he was a kafir because he had dodgy aqidah. So a person can be excellent in fiqh, but where aqidah is concerned, he's zero. Albani's problem was good in hadith, but he had dodgy aqidah. He wasn't a kafir, but he was a murji. He believes in kufr duna kufr.
I read in a book that he been into schools before.
He tried to create a fifth school of thought, but he failed miserably. There's no fifth school of thought. The great scholar of Islam, Ibn Taymiyyah, he wrote a book, 37 volumes, and still he had to follow Ahmad bin Hanbal. With all his knowledge, he wrote 37 volumes from his aql, his knowledge was so much, he put all his knowledge in a book, 37 volumes, and he had to follow the Hanbali school of thought. So there's no fifth school of thought, you have to stick to the four. The four great Imams have already done the job. You cannot make a fifth school. Anybody who tries to make a fifth school, they always fail miserably.
All these scholars, they've made a lot of mistakes in accordance to Aqidah and fiqh and different issues. Didn't they have this knowledge about Aqidah, like basic knowledge, like Ibn Rushd you just mentioned, like if he was a big scholar of fiqh, how come he didn't know about Aqidah?
Allah guides whom He wills. Allah Ta'ala guides whom He wills. It's like the Jews in this country who teach you Islam in London University and Wales and Oxford and Cambridge. They don't have the right Aqidah. Why are they still Jews dying as kafirs to be in hell? So Allah guides whom He wills. Ibn Sina was a great scholar, he was a kafir. Ibn Sina was a great scholar, he was a kafir. Because he believed in Wahdatul Wujud. I can name you many scholars, great scholars, but they're kafirs. Because they have dodgy aqidah. And many of you, when you hear a scholar is a kafir, you say, what is that? You understand? You have never, the Sahabas, aren't they our greatest scholars? Did Sahabas apostate and join Musliman? Yes. So if Sahabas can apostate, what makes you think a scholar cannot apostate? Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, a great scholar, was a kafir. The British paid him some money and he apostated from Islam and said, I am a prophet after Muhammad. A great scholar. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. The British gave him money and he apostated from Islam and said, I am a prophet after Muhammad. I can name you many scholars in the past who apostated. So scholars can become kafir. The shaitan is a great scholar. The shaitan is a great scholar. But he's not your scholar, is he? Is the shaitan your sheikh? But he's a scholar. So don't respect a person because of his knowledge. Look at his stance. What is his stance? Does he believe in Sharia? Does he believe in jihad? Does he believe in al-wala wal-bara? Does he believe in Tawhid Hakimiyya? If you're going to respect knowledge, you have to respect the shaitan. Don't respect a man because of his knowledge. What is his stance? Is he standing up for Sharia and jihad? Or is he standing up for his belly and his private parts? What is he standing up for? So you should only respect the stance, not the knowledge, because the shaitan is loaded with knowledge.
That's fair enough, Sheikh. Like you have to look at the stance of the Sheikh. But if there's a scholar in front of you who is extremely knowledgeable, and he could have a wrong Aqidah, and you are a jahil in the first place, the person who is there sitting there. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not calling all of police. But it is like you don't have enough knowledge as that sheikh. So if that sheikh misleads you or leads you towards the wrong, how can you judge that? I mean, it's really difficult.
In Baqarah 166, Allah said He will dump the wicked scholars and their students together in the hellfire. It's your fault. You should ask Him for evidence. Allah gave you an aql. And Allah said the worst of creatures, inna sharr dawabi in the law. The worst of creatures are those who don't think for themselves. It's your fault. If I sit in front of you and said your Eman is static, it doesn't go up nor down, would you buy that? No. Would you accept that? No. Now these definitions of Eman which I gave you, 4 dodgy definitions. Eman is only awareness. Eman is only declaration with the tongue. And Eman is only
what about the person?
Tongue and the heart.
If a person is learning...
These were scholars who gave this definition. Not the laymen, scholars. And other scholars refute them. So when you saw other scholars refuting them, you should go along with the sincere scholars who refute them. So if you follow a wicked scholar, you'll be dumped in the hellfire with your wicked scholar on Judgment Day. Read Baqarah 166. And the scholar said, it's not just the wicked scholars who will be dumped with their students, all the people who had followings. It's a general ayah. The scholars of Tafsir said this ayah is general. If you were a leader and the Muslims follow you into wrongdoings, you and your followers will be in hellfire. So when the Sahabas were sent on the battlefield and the Amir said to them, build a fire. So they built the fire. The Amir said to them, jump in the fire. And they refused. They came back to the Prophet. O Messenger of Allah, did we do wrong? He told us to jump in the fire. We did not jump in the fire. The Prophet said, if you had jumped in the fire, on Judgment Day, you will be in the fire. Why do I like to quote this hadith? There is no blind following in Islam. The Amir said, build the fire. Then he said to the Muslims, jump in the fire. He got power hungry. And maybe he was a Saudi Salafi. The Saudi Salafis follow sheikhs blind, yes. And they criticize those who follow other sheikhs blind, but they themselves follow sheikhs blind. So the Prophet said to the Sahabas, if you had jumped in the fire, on Judgment Day, you yourself would be in the fire. One last question is late.
There's a book written, Al-Bani Unveiled. And when you go in the look in the first page, you can look at, he quotes Bukhari hadith, and then he says it's fabricated. And then otherwise, then you find his commentary, and he refutes the hadith in Bukhari. And he's done a series of it.
The book Al-Albani Unveiled is not a good book because the person who wrote it, I think he's a kafir. I'm not sure, but I think. He tried to unveil Albani, but he unveiled himself. Understand? The man who wrote the book Albani Unveiled, I think he's a kafir. And he's a Sufi, a goofy Sufi. And I think he works with it. You know, the Sufis, they are working in collaboration with Christian governments to attack Islam. Is there any Algerian inside here? No. Any? Before the Muslims liberated Algeria, what did they have to do first? They had to kill the Sufis. Before you can before they could liberate Algeria from the French, they had to kill the Sufis. And all the countries of the world who hate Islam, they allow one brand of Islam to spread, Sufism. Even in Dubai, the only dawah they allow in Dubai is Sufism. In Syria, where they massacre Muslims in Syria, the only dawah they allow is Sufism. So the greatest enemies of Islam, the only dawah they allow to spread in their country is Sufism. So before you can liberate the country, you have to first kill the Sufis, because they are the Christians of the Ummah. They have collaborated with the Christians against Islam and Muslims. That was the last question. So donations, please.
Brothers, put away their chairs.